This week I'm going to be messing around with this 1950 FL bottom end. Now this is not the bottom end we put together a couple videos ago when we shimmed the crank. This is another bottom end again. I have bottom ends everywhere at the moment. I'm putting a heap of motors together at the moment and you don't see them all on this channel. If you guys want to keep up to date, jump over to my Instagram. I post everything I'm working on over there. I put together way more engines than you see on the channel here. So anyway, a bit of background on this motor. This is a buddy of mine's motor, Travis Tuckman. He bought this thing in a basket case. Now, basket case, aka means spend a heap of fucking money on it. If you guys want to, get into one of these motors, the cheapest way to do it is not a basket case. Look, you might be cheap to purchase it at the start, but to put one of these things together from a pile of parts that has never been together is completely insane. Like, rebuilding a motor that has been together and run together before and rebuilding a motor or building a motor that has never run together with the combination of parts is a completely different ball game. For a motor that's run together, a complete rebuild sort of is around the 50-hour mark to put one together, completely tear down, rebuild and put back together. Just in this motor here, this is a complete basket case. These cases had never been together before. The flywheels had never been together before, never run together, all mismatched parts. I've got 60 hours in this thing just in a bottom end. So just to get this thing rotating, I've got 60 hours sitting here. So it is a completely different ball game putting together one of these motors that's never been together before. So anyway, Travis has this thing here. I got it, as I said, in a box of bolts, box of parts. It had fucking Ford parts in there, had car parts, had all sorts of weird parts in this box of stuff for this motor. So anyway, I've gotten together and basically pieced this together as you see it. So I had to marry the cases. I had to custom make a left flywheel for this thing because it had the correct right flywheel, which is obviously an early style. So we have this early style pinion shaft, and we have this is a flat roller, so we have our spline drive on our sprocket side. So he had like a fucking a shovel right flywheel. So a shovel right flywheel, a 74-inch, you can make work on these. All you got to do is you've got to machine a dowel so that you can put your shim on there to shim the crank in the cases. So I did that on the right side. That's pretty easy. But the left side was an early 74 flywheel. So I had to machine it out and do a bunch of funky stuff to fit the taper drive shaft in there. So like I said, if you want to get into these things for a bit cheaper, don't do what Travis did. Buy a motor that has been together before and has run together before. That is the perfect motor to buy. Anyway, back to this thing. In this episode, I've got a few things I want to do. So once again, being a basket case, this motor had a cam with it, but it was an early shovel cam. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have run shovel cams in their pans before, but they have more timing in the lobes and a few different weird bits and pieces like that, which makes them a bit hard to start. So they will run faster and everything once they're running, but the way the heads are set up and like the valves and everything, the geometry just wasn't there back then. So the reason they put a bit more timing and stuff into the shovel cams is because the heads are a bit more advanced than what they were back then. So when you run a shovel cam in one of these, it is a bit difficult to start and a bit difficult here and there, doesn't really like it. So being that this is Travis's sort of first Harley, I'm pretty sure, first old thing anyway, I'm just going to put the correct cam in it for him. It's going to save some headaches down the track. So I'm obviously just going to buy an aftermarket Andrews cam for this thing, but I want to make sure I buy the correct cam. Now, the biggest problem people have when they buy a camshaft, they buy a camshaft too big for their engine. Now, what that does, it actually does the opposite. If you don't have the supporting compression, you don't have the supporting, headwork, you don't have the supporting valves, all of that stuff, a massive cam doesn't do anything. It actually makes it worse, makes it slower. So I want to go through, I want to measure what sort of compression we're working with on this thing so I can select the correct cam. And then the other thing I want to do, actually there's two more things I want to do on this video. One of the other things I want to do, I have the oil pump for this thing. He had a like just a box of different oil pump bits. And the oil pumps were either, if you ever played with these early cast oil pumps, all the feed fittings in the bottom were broken off, so the little thread, everyone always over tightens it and blows that out. All them were fucked. Or the gear, the inside where the gears run, you know, everyone always hits the key into the side of the cast pump and always has a mark. They were either fucked in there or, you know, just threads everywhere fucked. So I managed to get an oil pump body and bits off my buddy Ollie Oliver. So I have that. I'm over there it's over there drying at the moment. I've just sandblasted it and painted it, so that looks super nice. So I want to put the oil pump on. I want to turn this thing over and make sure we're getting oil to the correct place. The other thing I want to do, I will show you the heads later, but the heads for this thing have been hot rodded. So like I said, I'll show you later. They have outside oilers. Now they're not an original outside oiler, but they have been converted to run outside oiling. They've been converted to run shovel exhaust. So they have a bolt instead of just a slip-on like a pan is. And they have been converted to run a shovel intake, which is pretty wild. Now this is really, I'll show you the heads later, but this is really early, it's like hot rodding of stuff. Like the work on this thing is so nice, but like I said, I'll show you that later. The case on the right of this, usually if you had an outside or you're putting shovel heads on your pan or something like that, you need to oil externally your heads. So usually just pull it out of your lifter screen here, but this being an early motor, there is no lifter oiling on this motor. So before they went to the hydraulic push rods, they had a hydraulic lifter, they have oil coming in here. So before that, you don't have oil and you don't have a lifter block here, so lifter screen here. So you really can't pull oil from there. So the only other place you can pull oil from is at the top here on your chest. Now some chests have this. I'm not exactly sure which models have that. It might even be outside oiler pans, but they just drill and tap in the top of your cam cover here because you've got an oil gallery that goes down here to your big end. So through your pinion oils your big end there, and that's that guy. And then it has this T here, and that goes up to oil your top end. So I'm going to drill and tap our cover in this so that I can oil the top end. Because this engine has outside oiler barrels, which are pretty hard to find. Outside oiler barrels, and like I said, outside oiler heads. I can't run the oilers that are supposed to go up the barrels into the heads. So I'm going to do a bit of modification to our cam cover, and then I can oil the heads. I'm just going to bend up some nice little copper oil lines once I've got all this sorted. So that is what I want to get knocked over in this episode. Now, I want to get onto the oil pump first, just so that I can sort of turn this over without having our barrels and, you know, pistons and everything in there. I want to be able to turn this thing over fast and make sure we're getting oil out of our galleries. Now, the only gallery I'm going to need oil from is this guy here, because I'm not using these two anymore because we're not oiling up the barrels. So when I put this together, I'm just going to use outside oiler gaskets that don't have the hole. So when we tighten this all up, it'll block the hole off and we don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go through, get this set up. I'm going to get the oil pump all laid out, and then we'll put this oil pump together and all that crap, and then get to the rest of it. So let's freaking get to it. Here I have all of my oil pump stuff together. So this is just the bare body. Like I said, I just painted this thing. So if you guys are going to be doing this at home, fucking do this thing a favor and just paint it. It takes you 2 seconds to paint it like that in some nice, you know, high temperature paint, and it turns out fucking nice. So I don't know why you guys don't do it more often. So anyway, to put this thing together, these things are fucking simple. They are way simpler than your later pumps. So basically there is 2 springs in this thing, and in your earlier pumps you'll have 2 balls, but in this later ones they have these shuttles. So this shuttle here is your oil pressure. So what happens is basically this spring holds this shuttle shut until it makes enough oil pressure to open it, and that's how it regulates the oil pressure. As soon as it opens this, it allows the oil past, and that's how much pressure the oil is coming past at. So you can adjust these by adjusting how much pressure is on these springs, but these ones are pretty straightforward. They don't run a lot of pressure, these things. They just run more volume than anything. So let me put these together. being an oil pump, just make sure you oil the hell out of it. So to start with, we'll just put this one in, make sure your shuttle goes in there nicely, it doesn't get stuck or anything like that. And then we just put our freaking top on. Comes with a new washer in our little kit. So I can put all this together. And you can, if you're a bit worried about it, you can check it with air too. You can blow air in it and then that will open the shuttle. But they're pretty good really. They fucking work. They're just so simple. And then basically the other one is just a ball and a spring. And this is the guy that stops wet sumping. So the idea of the ball and the spring is so that gravity can't feed oil past your gears here and into your engine and fill it up, thus wet sumping as they call it. So the idea is that this, the oil's got to go past the ball before it can go into the cases. So it's basically what that is all about. I don't know if I had a fucking washer for this or if there should be one. There wasn't one in the little kit, so we're going without. If it leaks, I'll fix it. So put this guy on, tighten him up. That is literally the two little guys to this pump. So that is that. Now we want to freaking put this pump on our engine now. So I've gone ahead, I've put all the studs in this motor and I have put the oil pump shaft in here. This fucking circlip on the end here is a little bit annoying to put in. That's why I did it off camera so you didn't have to hear me swearing about it. So basically we just put our pump side in first. So you'll see that you'll have gears that are thicker than the others. So the thicker gears are your scavenge and the thinner gears are your pressure. The idea of that is that it always returns more oil than what you're putting into the engine. And that, stops you from over oiling and makes it so you can get all the oil back out of the engine. So very important that. So one of them has this little bit of a dick on it and that goes up into the case. Don't ask me why. I'm not actually sure why it does that. It just fucking does. And the other one, so that was the idler. And the other one is on a key. Obviously the key is so it will freaking turn the gear. So put my key in there. And then I want to, anything oil pump, you want to make sure you have plenty of oil on. You don't want this shit to fucking, be dry. Oil pump always works more efficiently wet. So these things can be a little bit of a pain sometimes, but that's that. Have I got some grease here? I don't. As always, we freaking check our gasket on our pump and on our case. Make sure we are not covering anything up. Looks fucking good. Looks like we have the correct gasket here. So as always, we grease our freaking gaskets up. 2 reasons: it helps hydrate the gasket, helps it seal better, and also makes it really easy to stick in position. Sticks in position, it's way easier to deal with, doesn't fall around, and you can just jam the pump on. It's way fucking easier. So there's that. So make sure you fucking put this thing on correct and be very ginger with it. They are fucking fiddly sometimes. I think one of my studs is a little bit bent, so that's not helping. And I fucking just broke it, see? This thing just falls apart. I think this is a very old gasket. I'm gonna fucking get a newer gasket and let's try this again. This one too, it's fucking old. It just falls apart. Look at that. New gaskets. Alright, I just went and hijacked my stash of gaskets and I have found another one. Sometimes people had those old as shit gaskets laying around for a while. I got those gaskets with the pump. So obviously they are fucking old. So new ones are not so fucking brittle. like I said, I'm pretty sure one of my studs is a little bit bent, so I just need to, if I break this gasket too, I'm gonna have to fix something. They just get caught on the fucking threads of these studs. It's not freaking easy. Come on, get past the threads. There we fucking go. Make sure our holes are lined up. They look fucking pretty good. So let's fucking put our pump on. We probably have to just rotate this a little bit so the gears line up with our idler there. I haven't actually tried this pump since I put these studs in, so like I said, I think some of these studs seem like they're a bit bent. So a nice little now I'm hitting my gear like I said I would. My shaft is a little bit stuck there. What is hitting? Something's hitting. Something is not happy here. What is it? There it is. So it spins nicely. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The reason why we put our oil pump together now with none of our chests together is so that we can put our finger in here and spin this oil pump. The oil pump needs to spin nice and freely. If you've got your oil pump locked up, it means that there's something wrong in here and you're just going to create friction basically. So you need to be able to turn that thing by hand just like that. So that's all good so far. So I'm going to, just so we don't lose that, put these two top nuts on here. I don't fucking lose them. Just like that. Just so the pump sort of doesn't move or do anything annoying. I was pretty lucky, freaking Travis bought a nut and bolt kit for this engine. So it's going to have all the right bolts and stuff. Came with the nuts here for the oil pump. So it all should look pretty freaking red hot when it's done. So looking forward to seeing that. I think I might buy the same for my engine yet. Who fucking knows? So now the first thing we want to do is put this other key in. So I didn't put that in either. This is our oiler. So we'll do that later. But let's oil these up, put that key in, and then put these gears in. I actually haven't cleaned up the front cover yet. I was hoping to find another one. I don't have a spare one. So I'm gonna clean this front cover up. That's the guy that goes on the front of the pump yet. So I'm gonna clean that up yet. But we'll just do this for now. So key in first, as usual. Sometimes this key is a bit annoying to get in. The old screwdriver is your friend. Sort of help coach it in there a bit. Oh, come on, prick. Fucking starting to get hot in fucking Australia. It's been winter here for obviously a few months now. It's been fucking cold. Now it's starting to get hot. When you spit the key out the back, it gets caught between the gear and the body. And that's why all your bodies have those fucking big marks in them at the back where someone spat the key out. Super annoying. Fucking getting hard to find a good body these days. Alright, let's try this again. Let's try it this way around. Maybe it likes this way better. There it is. Fucking got it. So you should never have to force any of this stuff. It should go together really easy. And I just want to give this a knock. So your oil pump should have dowels in it that hold it in the right spot. This oil pump does not have a dowel in it. So I might have to give it a knock in certain directions to try and free this gear up a bit. It's not too tight. It does spin. It's just a little bit tight. So I'll put my other gear in here. See what it fucking does. Sometimes they get a bit better once you put pressure on them too. So we'll fucking see. So don't forget your little clip at the end of the shaft here too. Oh, Jesus, that was sharp. See, this is a little bit tight now. Looks good now, but all right, I'm back. I just had a little bit of fiddling to do there. Sometimes they just, just got to give them a little bit of time a day and sort of try and nut these things out a bit. And they always come around as long as you treat them right. So just putting this clip on now. These clips are super annoying to put on. You fucking shoot these things across the room so often. So don't be pissed off if you don't do it as easy as I just did. They are super annoying. That moves nicely. So the front cover now, so that's pretty well the pump together. I just want to go and clean this front cover up a bit. It's a bit fucking dirty. Done such a nice job with the rest of it. I'd like that to be nice and clean. So BRB, let me go and clean this. Alright, so I went through, cleaned up my front cover. I've got it all bolted down now, so it all moves freely with my finger. I've just got the little key on here at the moment. I can still move it all with my finger nice and easily, so we know that this thing is right. Now, if you guys have watched this channel before, you have probably seen me do this little trick before. What I've got here, I've just got the oil feed on my pump here. So I've just got this little reservoir up here that is going to be my oil feed. So what I want to do, I want to make sure, so I'm going to put some oil in this thing. I want to make sure that our oiling system is working before we fucking start this thing up. If we just sit here and roll it, we're only doing a couple revolutions a minute, you know what I mean? It's not going to be hard on the engine, but if we were to start this thing, the lowest this thing idles at is 1,000 RPM. So that is a lot of time for it to fuck stuff up if it's dry. So what we want to do is we want to pre-lubricate this thing and make sure that our oiling system is working. It's not much point realizing after 5 minutes of running this thing, a brand new fucking engine, that you've got your oil pump gasket wrong or something, when you could have spent 5 minutes doing this and work it out before you start it, you know what I mean? So what we want to do, we want to bleed the air out of this little tube, let the oil come down to the pump, just like that. And then we're just going to turn this thing over. Turn this thing over forward, like that, and we'll just watch our oil. We want that to start going down. Then we know it's pumping it. See how it's going down? So we know it's pumping the oil, which is good. It's pumping it quite fast, to be honest. So first place we should see it coming out of this threaded hole here. Now this threaded hole is where our oil pressure switch goes. So that little guy there that sends the earth signal, that's where he goes. So we should see it there first. So let's just keep going. Fuck, that's pumping quick. So let's just put a little bit more in. You don't want it to pump air, you want to keep oil up to it. So let's keep going. Hopefully we see it coming out that top bit in a sec. You tell me if it's coming out somewhere else. I've had that before. Something I'd have forgotten to do though. I want to put this guy in. So this is the oiler. So if you were running a chain primary still. You can adjust how much oil this thing will blow out the breather onto your chain. Now, we will be running a belt in this thing, so we want to block this off. So we just seat this gently. Gently seated, and then lock that up. That is done. Did I 3/8 here? No. Alright, so let's keep going. Let's keep turning this over and looking for oil. See any yet? It's pumping. Whoop. So there's quite a big cavity in there. This thing's got to fill before it starts to make pressure. So we're probably just filling that up. So we just keep going. You guys keep looking for oil. There it is. See it coming out of there? So that's sweet. I've got a cap here somewhere. So I'm going to cap that. Now, because this is an early engine and we only have... Oh no, actually, hold on. We should see it next come out of the front here. So that'll go out into our chest and then down here into our big end. And the other place we should see it is up here oiling the top end. So let's keep going and see if that's happening. Oh, see that up there? So we're oiling the top end now. That's fucking sweet. So let's keep going. I've got it out of one hole. Hopefully it comes out of the other soon. I'm just going to turn this over. Yep. So it's coming out both of our top now. I want to hold this now, and to get oil going out here, it needs to overcome one of those springs. So it needs to actually make pressure. So I don't know if it's going to let me do this. I'm going to have to try and do all this. Oh, yep. See how much oil I can fucking spill. So hand over that and just turn it over. Make a bit of oil pressure. And it's making pressure because it's pissing it out of here. So let me tighten this up a fraction. I didn't like that. Oh yeah. Helps if I fucking screw it in there. So it's obviously making pressure. Alright, so let's try this again. I just don't want to go too fast and smack the case with the rods. That's the worst. See that? Straight out there. That's where we want to see it. So before anything else, we want to see that bottom end get oiled. So that is our bottom end getting oiled. That's exactly what we want to see. And that's why we do this stuff. That's why we test our oil passages. Even though we're not going to be using these two oil passages, means we got the gasket and everything on there correctly. This oil passage here is going to be oiling the whole engine because I'm not going to be using these two. So basically what I need to do now, I need to get my chest together. You know how I said I've got to do some machining on this chest? So what we just saw there was the oil coming out of this hole, right? And that's that hole right there. So the oil's coming out of that hole into this one and then down there into our big end. The other thing I want to oil is up here because we're going to oil from the top end. So I'm going to drill this hole and tap it to probably 8th BSB, and then I can run a fitting out of this to oil the head. So I also need to make a different bush for this because this is an early style engine. The way these things have oil pressure, just need to turn that over. The way these things have oil pressure is our pinion gear here floats. It only goes one way. There it is. See how pinion gear floats? See how it's got a spring on it and it floats? So what it does, it floats forward and it sits on a... It literally looks like that. It's a bush that has a shoulder like that, and it sits on that shoulder, and it pushing against the shoulder is what makes the seal so that the oil goes to the bottom end. So this needs to work. That needs to be able to push out like that against the side of this. Obviously, this is the wrong year cover. So I'm going to machine one of these bushes to go in here. I'm also going to do a little trick with this. So the way this works now, right? We've got this hole right here on the end of our pinion shaft. So we've got a single hole there. And every time that hole lines up with this hole, it gives it oil. So I want this thing to oil all the time. So at the moment, it's sort of like a timed oiler. Every time it comes past the hole, it gets oil. So what I want to do, when I machine this bush, I'm sure I could fucking probably buy one. I'll see what Ollie reckons. But if I make this bush, even if I buy a bush, I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to cut a groove. So I'm going to cut a groove in the same place that our hole's in so that the oil is always feeding the hole. If I got a groove around the whole thing, it doesn't matter where the hole is because there'll be a groove feeding the hole. So I'm going to do that on this and also drill this. So we know that our bottom end is sweet now, our oil pump and everything works. I think I might go through and put the top end on now. I'm going to call Ollie and see if he has one of these bushes. If not, I'm going to make one. But for now, I'm going to go through. Let's go have a look at compression ratios now. I want to put this top end on and get it sort of sitting there, work my ratios out, and then I can fucking put the heads on. And then, like I said, if I work out this compression ratio, then I can order a cam for this thing and finish off the chest and get all that shit done. So let me clean up this mess and we'll get on to setting up the top end. Basically, what I got going on here, I have my barrel on, I have my base gasket under there. So this is how it would be in running condition. So this is sort of when you're mocking up something, you want it to be as in working condition. So I have my piston on, I have my base gasket in, barrel on, bolts, I've got my nuts tightened here, and you can see my piston coming up the top of the barrel here. Now, what I am doing here, I am just measuring with everything together whereabouts the piston comes to above the barrel. So, probably a little bit hard for you guys to see, but there's a tiny little lip on the piston, and that comes up perfectly in line with the top of the firing ring. So, basically what I want to do here, I want to measure the compression, right? So I can measure the compression and then choose a cam accordingly. I sort of know what's going on here if I know what the compression is, and then I can choose the right cam. Like I was saying earlier, if I choose a cam that's too big, it's going to be dog shit. If I choose a cam that's too small, it's going to be shit as well. So I want to sort of have an idea of compression, then I'll know my stroke, and then I'll know what sort of valves and stuff I've got in this thing as well, because the head's already done. So basically, I know where my piston is above my barrel now. The next thing I want to make sure is making sure that the piston doesn't hit the head. So I haven't got a head gasket on this, and I just want to see if the piston doesn't hit it now, you know we're all good. So usually when you run quite high comp in these things, the piston comes super close to the head. So we are freaking good here. So these are these funky little heads I was talking about earlier. So these heads are Panheads. So they're OEM Panheads. They're early. They're 48 casting heads. So they're the ones you want. But someone has done this freaking shovel head exhaust flange on it. Now it's done really, really well. Someone has had a really good go at this. It's all ported and polished on the inside. So someone has hot rodded this thing pretty heavily. Not only that is they've put big valves in this thing too. These are shovel head valves. So you've got an 1.75 inch intake and you've got an 1.5 inch exhaust. So these have been fairly hot rodded here. Big intake valves means obviously more power. More air means more power. Now these things usually have the same size intake and exhaust. They didn't really know so much about go fast bits back then. It was all sort of trial and error, and they worked out that exhaust doesn't really matter as much as long as you get the air in there. So this thing has big intake valves in it, our shovel head exhaust, and it has an outside oiler. So this is what I was talking about. So it has an oil port here. The oil galleries up, usually our oil ports for this engine are up the cylinder, but these are outside oiler barrels, and these heads have been converted to outside oiler. So I am going to have to do something a little bit tricky with the cam cover to oil these, because this being an early right case, it doesn't have a lifter screen here. So usually with the lifter screen, people just rob oil out of that to oil the top end. This doesn't have one. So I don't want to rob oil from the gauge port on the pump, because that sort of gets oil before any of the rest of the engine. That's where the pump is creating the oil. So if I was to take it from there, it's probably going to rob a heaps of oil out of the bottom end, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to rob it out of the cam cover. I'll show you how I'm going to do that after this. I'm going to cross drill an oil port so that the bottom end and top end have equal amount of oil. So like I said, it's been blocked off here and it's outside oiler. So it's been cross drilled to line up with the lifter blocks on top of the heads here. So that's pretty cool. Someone's done a really, really good job at hot rodding these. So like I was saying, the piston doesn't hit the head, so that is pretty well the main thing. That's good. So we know with the gasket on there, it's absolutely not going to hit. So what we're going to do now, because we know where the piston comes to on the barrel, I'm going to take the barrel off. The reason for that is I want to check how much capacity is going to be inside this chamber with the piston all the way to the top of the cylinder. So I want to fill that with water and measure the cc's of water in there. Obviously don't want to do that on the engine. If I spill any water down to the crank, it's going to be sitting a little while before it runs. I don't want it to rust. So I'm going to take it off and do it off the motor. I just needed to mock it up and see where the piston comes to. So now that I got that sorted, I'm going to tear this apart, set it up, and we are going to measure the cc's of our chamber with the piston completely at top dead center. All right, so I have my little chemistry lab here set up. Basically what I've got going on here, I've taken the barrel off the engine, obviously, and I have the piston in the barrel with the piston at the top dead center that we worked out with the barrel on the engine. So the way I did that, you put the rings on there and you put a bit of grease around it and push it up to where you want it to be, and the grease will hold the piston there and it'll make it a nice watertight seal. So now what we do, we measure how much fluid fits in there till it just goes to the bottom of our spark plug port there. So I've just got a little measuring guy here. I've just got some fucking ATF because it's easier to see. So we'll go, I think it should take about 90 mil or something from memory. So we'll go 40. Am I going to be able to pour this cunt in there? I don't think so. Give me a fucking sec. All right, I've got a funnel now. This will help. So we'll pour the 40 in here. Like I said, I'm guessing about 90. So 40. Can I see it? Nope. I'm going to go 20 at a time now. 40, this will be 60. Can I see it? Nope. So this will be 80. Just going to go a little bit. I can see it now. So it needs a little bit more. What was that, 80 we said? So we'll go 10, see what that does. So this will be 90. Like I said, the last one I did was about 95 or something. Oh, it's coming up the spout now. So I've got too much. So I'm going to call that, like I said, it was a little bit much. So I'm going to call it 80. So we've got 80 milliliters of volume with the piston all the way to the top. So the other way, I don't think we're going to be very accurate measuring it on the way out, but I'm going to call it 85. That's going to be close enough. So we got 85 cc's of volume in our chamber with the piston the whole way to the top. Now, let me get rid of all this shit and I'll write this down on a pen and paper, what we got going on and what our volume is. All right, so I got my little notepad here and my calculator. So basically to work out our compression, all we need to know is our stroke. So this being a 74-inch or a 1200cc shovel or a pan, they have the same stroke, and that is 3 and 31/30. Now, if fractions annoy you as much as they annoy me, it's pretty easy to work out that fraction in decimal. All you do is 31 divided by 32. If I fucking do it right, 31 divided by 32. We just take that division through there, basically. So that is 3.968. That is our stroke. So the next thing we need to know is our bore. So obviously I just measured my bore here, and we've got 3.460 bore. So the reason we need these to work out our sweat volume. So that's just height by diameter, basically. So our sweat volume is the volume that the piston moves up and down in the cylinder. So that is at all the way at the bottom, and then it moves it's 3.968. That is the volume the piston's moving inside there. That is your 611.4 cc's. Now, what's happening here? So when our piston is at bottom dead center, it's all the way down the bottom. We have our sweat volume, so that's how much the piston moves. And then we have this bit of volume up here that we just measured. So that's the 85. So we need to add these two together, and that is our complete volume of the head and the cylinder when the piston's all the way at the bottom of the chamber. So all we do there, go 85 plus 611.4 equals, so we've got our total is 696.4, and then all we do is divide that by the volume when the piston's all the way at the top. So when the piston is completely at the top, that's what we measured. That's our 85 cc's. So we just divide this by 85 cc. So divide by 85, and this is our compression ratio. So this engine has a compression ratio of 8.19. Let's call it 8.2. So we got it. The comp ratio is 8.2. Now, I think that's going to be fucking perfect for this motor because it's not a crazy amount of compression. It's not going to be hard to kick, but it's not so little compression that it's not economical and it won't be a nice fast bike. So 8-to-1 compression is, or 8.2-to-1 compression is fucking perfect. So pretty happy with that. So now I'm just going to have a look at an Andrews sort of catalog and sort of see what sort of cam I should be running, because we got those big exhaust, those big intake valves. I'm going to speak to a buddy of mine. He's got a Panhead that makes heaps of power. So I'm going to see what sort of cam he recommends. But basically that is our compression ratio. So now that I've sort of worked that out, I can go ahead and select a cam and order it. I sort of need to make sure my oiling stuff works. So I want to make sure that I'm oiling through my shaft and into my rod set before I go ahead and, you know, put this top end on and put the gear set and put our gear side in all together. So let's go ahead and start working on that cam chest. All right, I think it's going to be easier to show you this in a bit of POV instead of me just sort of announcing it. So basically what I'm looking at here, this is a later model Panhead cam cover, right? And this is an early setup here. So what makes this early is this gear here. So this is our Pinion timing gear, right? And you see this gear is sprung. So the idea of this is the spring holds pressure on the gear and pushes it against your cam chest bush here. The idea of that is, obviously you got oil pressure coming out of your hole here. Oh, sorry. You got oil pressure going into your hole there. The idea to keep the oil pressure in our bush and not just blow out the side is to put pressure on the gear against the bush. Now, for an early cam cover, it has a flanged bush just like this one. So the bush comes up and then a flange like this. The idea of that is the gear pushes against the flange. So the problem being that this is a late model cover, it doesn't have the flanged bush. So all that's going to happen is this gear here is just going to push against my aluminium side here and eat it up. I Can't have that. So what am I fucking going to do here? You might say, why don't you just press in the bush for the earlier cover? Well, the OD is a different size, so I can't push the early bush into this case. It literally won't fit. It'll be too loose. So I think what I'm going to have to do here, I have two options. Option number one is just put a spacer in here. So I can just machine a little spacer that'll go on here, slip over, and then it'll just sort of ride in here. Option two, pull this bush out and I'll machine a bush with a shoulder so that this can push against it. The only thing about that is this is our oil pressure hole. So this hole here lines up with this hole here. So you saw when we were turning this thing over this way, oil comes out of this hole and goes through this hole, down this channel here, and then you can just see that little hole there. That is what feeds our hole in the crank, and that's what oils our big end. So, two things problem here. These heads that I spoke about, wherever the fuck they are, I put them away, they are outside oiler heads. Now, this being a 48-49 right case, it doesn't have a lifter block screen here. Usually when people run an outside oiler or like a shove pan or something, they pull the oil out of here to oil the heads. Now, I can't do that. I don't have that. So what I'm going to do with this case, you see how I've got this channel here. So in some of these covers you'll find, this is drilled and tapped and you can scab oil out of here. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I've got a couple little holes punched here. I'm going to drill and tap this to 8th BSB, and then I'm going to steal oil out of here to feed my top end. Now you're probably saying, why don't you just steal the oil from here? Now the problem with stealing oil from there is there's actually two problems. So number one being you got to run your pressure sender off here too. So in order to run the top end oil, you're going to have like a fucking T here to run your oil pressure thing and an oil line up there to your heads. It's going to look absolutely fucked. So that's one reason. The second reason is this is a big cavity. So this connects to a big cavity in here, which is a pressure cavity for the oil pump. So this is where it creates pressure first before it's pushed through the case and off everywhere else in the engine. The problem with that is oil is always going to take the easiest route. So if I was to pull oil from here and oil the heads, oil is just going to majority go through this line because it's the easiest to go through. It doesn't have to push through this little hole in the case. So that'll mean all the top end's got heaps of oil and our bottom end has fuck all oil. So I want to steal the oil when it tees here because it's already done the hard yards of going through this little hole through the case, doing a right angle and coming out here. So once it's done the hard yards getting to here, it's going to sort of, evenly distribute to the head off this way and then into the bottom this way. So sort of where I'm coming from wanting to tap that out. So the other thing I'm going to have to look at. So you can see that this just has a hole here, right? And then this just has a hole here. So that means that this is a timed oiler. So this crank will only oil every time the holes line up. So every revolution they'll line up once for a fucking tiny, tiny split of a second. They will line up and that will feed it oil. So I'm thinking when I make this bush, I might cut a groove the whole way around in line with this hole so that no matter where this hole is in the rotation, it is oiling. So I feel like the rockers are going to oil very easily, and this being a timed oil is not going to get much oil. So I'm thinking about cutting a groove in that so that it's always oiling. Now, I'm sort of in two minds about that. If this over oils the bottom end and that's the easy route, it's going to get fuck all oil to the top end. So, and I can't restrict this after I do it. So I'm wondering if I should just leave bygones be bygones and just leave this alone. This is how they've designed it. Should I leave it alone? Anyway, looks like I'm going to have to machine this bush regardless. The other thing I want to do is measure, because I had to modify the cases to fit together. I had to shorten some stuff. I had to do some shit with the flywheels. I'm not sure if this hole is going to line up with this hole anymore. So I'm going to measure off the case here, work out where that hole is and then measure off the face and down to that hole and make sure they still line up. If they don't line up, I'm going to have to do something a little bit tricky and cut that hole lengthways so that it lines up. So I'm just going to go through what to do first. I might go through and sort this bush out first because I want to make sure this oiler works when we put the chest on. So I need to do this bush first, then I'll cut that. So let's go ahead and pull this bush out. Righty, so I have pretty well everything nutted out. I need to work out with making this bush, right? So I have the old bush out. That was the first thing I did. This thing was a pain to get at. It was fucking seriously tight. So if you're ever getting a bush like this out of something and it is super tight, like I couldn't pull it out, the best way to do it is remove some material. So removing the material will remove the tension in the outer wall. So it'll sort of, crush again and come out super easy. So that's what I had to do here. Just took that meat out there and we got it out completely. So what you can see is this is our hole that feeds oil. So we know it comes out of the case here, right? It comes out there, into this hole, down here, and then oils here. So what I want to do, I did two things. Before I pulled this bush out, I measured the hole. So what I wanted to do, I just used the surface of our plate here as sort of a datum, measured off that with a straight edge. So I just got a little fucking rule like this, put that back on, put it across here, right? And then measured from here to the center of the hole. So the center of the hole was pretty bang on because we want this hole to line up with that hole, obviously. So because I did some funky stuff with this crank, I just wanted to make sure that, our pinion was in the right spot. It's sort of within 10th thou. So what I might do when I make the bush, I might just oval it a bit, make it a bit longer so it lines up a little bit better. So that was the first thing. Now the next thing I needed to do was sort of work out how big I could make the flange. So I sort of just wanted to make it the same as this one. This has got a 50 thou flange on it. So what I had to do to work that out, let's see if I can do this with one hand. We had to put this on, right? So that worked pretty easy actually. So we put that on like that, no gasket in it. I just wanted to make sure without a gasket in there, does our pinion gear still do a move? Because it's on a spring, remember? Is that a bit dark in there? Anyway, let me just see if I can, I'm trying to show you and myself at the same time. So see that? We have plenty of movement there, which is what we need because we want this gear to push against the bush that's going to look the same as this one. So that is all sweet. If I went a 50 thou bush, there was heaps of movement there. So I'm going to go with the 50 thou bush. So let's pull this back off. I'm doing this all one-handed. So 50 thou flange on it, that's all good. I worked out, I did some measuring too. The other reason I can't use a later model, the other reason I can't use the earlier bush is because the inner is actually a different size. So this is bigger than what it is on a later model. So I have to make it anyway. So I have my little thing here. I've worked it out. So I got 0.26 from the top surface down to where the hole lines up. So that is all sweet. 50 thou flange, and this is my crude little drawing here. So I worked out that our ID, so that is the bit, this is our pinion shaft. This is the ID, so I just measured this guy. That is 0.687. So I've got half a thou of tolerance in there, half a thou play in that. So our pinion is obviously not going to be tight in our bush. I've got half a thou of movement there, so that's probably plenty. You don't want it too loose, otherwise the oil will just shoot past it. We don't want it too tight, otherwise it'll bind up. So that, the OD, so that is the outside diameter of our little bush here. This needs to be tight. I'm also going to machine that little pin back in so it doesn't spin. So I need to do that. So that is 1.5 thou over 1 inch. So that's annoying size, but doesn't matter. I got to machine it anyway because we've got to machine this flange in. So I got 0.65, and that's how deep it goes down here. And then obviously just our 50 thou flange. So it's 700 thou overall. And we'll push it into that. And obviously once I have machined it, I will drill the hole after, obviously. Hopefully get that in a bang on spot, this 0.26 down from the shoulder. So it shouldn't be too hard to mark that and get it right. Doesn't matter what orientation the bush is going to be in, because I'll probably drill this pin after I line that up. It's going to be a bit tricky to line two things up at once, but I reckon we got this. Usually they would probably just take this. I don't think I can take this out. That must be a little cap. They would take the cap out, press the thing in, cross drill it, and then it doesn't matter. But I can't really get that cap out. I don't want to have to put it back in either, so I'll just have to make these line up. I should be able to get it. I can even put, see how in this one it's got the pin out further? I could probably drill another pin hole, but I'd like to use that one. It would be way better. So I have my material here. This is phosphor bronze. So this is, harder than just normal old soft bronze and harder than aluminium, but is still softer than steel. So it's that middle way between. We obviously can't make this out of steel because it'll be steel on steel and I'll hate it. So we've got to make it out of something a little bit softer. So phosphor bronze is the go. So I'm going to go over to my lathe now and I'm going to machine this up. And when we come back, we'll have a look at pressing it in and all that sort of jargon. But let me go ahead and get this done. Right, so I have most of this thing all machined now. I have my OD machine here to size, so that's the one that'll press into the case. This is the flange. This is our 50 thou flange here, and this is obviously our ID here. Now I have that to size as well, so I made that super nice. You can tell how, see the air going around it, stops it from going in and out. That's how you know she's a good fit. Just spins like that. I gave that about half a thou. So that should be more than close enough. It should find its home after a while. It'll wear itself where it wants to be. But remember, it's going to have oil pressure in the side of it. So this thing ideally should be floating on a film of oil. So awesome fit that. So I made this pretty close to size. So usually when you machine something like this, if you've got half a thou crush on this, you're going to have to make it half a thou bigger on the inside because it's going to crush that same amount. But I sort of want to glue this in because we have a pin holding this from spinning and it's pretty well bang on size here. I'm going to glue it in with some bearing retainer. I don't want to have to hone this thing when it's in the case because it's perfect now. If I make this, see how nice that fits? If I made this perfect size, this is not going to shrink when I put it in. So that was the idea of that. Then I don't have to finish it off once I put it in the case. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off now, face it off, and then finish it off. So then we can have a look at it with the case and drill the holes in before we press it in. Oh, that's a good fit. Righto, so I have this thing all parted off and ready to go. So obviously I just went ahead and parted it off that bit of stock that I had. I went through and drilled the oil hole so you can see it in there. What I've got going on here, right? See how I've got this oil hole and then I made a bigger hole around it that's not the whole way through. The idea of that is if it's not perfectly lined up, the oil will still go through because it hits into that bigger cavity and then goes into where we want it. So because I need to line this guy up more than that one, I sort of want to just make it so it would always get good oil. But I think I've got it sorted out pretty close. So that'll be bang on there. And I've got this guy, that's where my dowel will live. That's lined up there. So I'm going to press it in and make sure the dowel's lined up. And like I said, I made this big enough so it's always going to be lined up. So obviously this is going to go on here and live on there. I didn't want to make this too tight. Obviously it's got no wriggle in it, but I didn't want to make it too tight where it wanted to bind up. So nice, easy spin, that's what we want. So the other thing I was looking at is, obviously I want to see how close this hole is to this hole. So all I did was whack that on there, put my square across this, and you can see this is a little bit proud. So I know that's about that much proud. So all I do is put this on here, look down it, and we want that just about there, sort of halfway through it. And you see she lines up freaking spot on. So that's exactly what we want to see. I know I was talking about putting a groove in there so it always oils, but I'm worried that if I oil the bottom end too much, the top end doesn't have enough. So this is how it was. I'm just going to put it back to that. So we'll see how it goes. In future, if the top end or something's over oiling when I look at this, when I assemble this motor, then I know that I can always give the bottom end a bit more oil. But for time being, I don't want to have to pull this apart because the top end's not getting enough oil and fix this. So I'm going to leave it the way that Harley intended. So that's all sorted now. I'm going to go through, glue this in. I'm going to drill my little, because these original ones are on the side. Obviously, it's fucking impossible to drill on the side there. So I've just put it a little bit over. So when I put this in, I'll drill that again, and then I'll knock the dowel in so this doesn't spin. So I'm going to go through and do that, and then we'll test fit it on this. And then if that's all go, we will come through and drill our little top hole here. Righto, so I had a little bit of a win with my bush here. You can see I've got a little impression where I pressed it in. The socket I used was a little bit big and it was pushing on sort of the flange instead of this solid bit that goes the whole way through. It's not going to be the end of the world. That'll fucking probably wear off pretty quickly. But you see my little dowel here. You can see my hole. If I blow air through our oil hole here, it comes out here. So that is freaking perfect. The other thing the other thing I've done here, which way around? That way. The other thing I've done is obviously just tried it on my machine. Whoa. Easy, Tiger. Remember, I'm doing all this one-handed, so it's not fucking easy. So all this fits on my little machine here. Give me a sec. Probably hate watching me do that, but one-handed. Where's my little mallet? Everyone always gives me shit about don't use your hands as hammers. So that's that. Hopefully you can do a bit of a C in there. So you can just see it there, and if I put my screwdriver in here, it moves back and forth still. So that is exactly what we want. So it has pressure against it, and the pressure against it is the pressure of the gear against our thing is what gives us oil pressure. So that's all sweet. This thing turns over mighty fine. So that is our bush. It's fucking annoying when they have a thing in there, but that is our bush freaking done. So all I've got left to do, I'm going to make this knuckle style, and I am going to drill this out here, and that's going to connect the oil passage to the bush that we just machined. So I'll get equal oil pressure to my top end and my bottom end. So that's the next thing we'll tackle. Let's drill this out. Righto, so now that we have our bush done here, I need to drill our oil port here. So I don't know if I'm repeating myself here, but we need to drill this oil port because the motor does not have head oilers. So I need to drill this port out so that we can oil the head and the bottom end here. So what I've got here, I've just got my cam cover set up in my, humble little drill press here. I just put the table on a 90 so we can drill straight up and down the port. Obviously, I don't need to drill the whole way down the port. I just need to intersect it. So I've sort of worked that out. Got this thing sitting level here. I've just got a 5mm bit in here just to start it. So you always start your hole with a smaller bit and then go to your bigger bit. I'm just going to drill a 1/8 BSB T in here, so a taper, and then a regular old oil fitting will just screw in there. So let's fucking have a crack at this. Oh, she's moving. I need 2 hands for this. Oh, here we go. Hopefully she hits the oil port, otherwise I'm fucked. I'll have to weld this thing up and do it again. Come on, blow through. Fuck, it's moving a heap. I need to fucking fix that. It's not easy with one hand. Come on, blow through, would ya? Surely it's somewhere here. All right, so that wasn't as easy as I was hoping. So you can see I've got the hole tapped here. I was hoping this, I don't know why I was thinking this. You can see I got a little butcher up here, but I don't know why I was thinking this would be pre-drilled already. They would cross-drill this when they drill this hole. So I had to drill the whole way through here and intersect this hole. You can see I had a little bit of a boo-boo here. I come through there and had to redo it. So I just put a little bit of tack. I just welded that up with a bit of alloy. I also welded this guy here. So the idea of this was when we only had oil coming down here, if it had too much oil pressure in here, it would just come out the side. So obviously I don't want that. I want this to pressurize, and then whatever this doesn't use, I want it to go back up here to our head. So I just capped that, and then obviously cross-drilled this, drilled that out, and put an 8th BSB in there. I did have a fucking, is this it? Yeah. So this is not the fitting I'm going to use, but you get the idea. So he goes in there like that. I will be doing like a hard line, like a nice copper hard line that goes to the heads. So just wanted to, 8th BSB is like the most common, so I've just tapped it to that. So now that I have this tapped, I have my oil hole drilled through here, I have this all sorted out. I want to do a bit of proof of concept. So sure, we can measure everything to fucking the cows come home, but whether it's fucking right when it works in physical, form is another story. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to put a gasket on this, set it up on here, hook up my little oil rig up again, and then I want to turn this thing over and make sure that we're getting oil down at the rods. Make sure our bush is working, make sure these holes are working, make sure we have oil up here, make sure all that's working. Obviously, I've blown air through it. I know this intersects. But, whether this goes through there, whether our hole lines up correctly, whether it all works in theory is one thing, in practice is another. So I'm going to set this all up, turn it over with my oil, and let's, fingers crossed, we get oil down at our big end here. Righto, so you can see in there, oh, maybe not. You can see in there, see all the oil around my big end there. We are oiling. Obviously, if you guys haven't done this before, little trick, just put some zip ties between there so that when you turn it over, you don't just bang the rod into the case. So you can see I've got heaps of oil coming out of my top end oilers, which are not going to work, obviously, but you can see all the oil on my big end. I had oil up here, so we know this is working, had to cap it off. So all our oiling's working. You can also see in there, probably just see that bit of oil in front of the pinion. So that is freaking working too. So all this seems to be working freaking well now. So that is my cover all sorted out. So basically that is probably it for this episode. That's all I wanted to do. I want to fucking polish this cover now. I'll probably go through, give this a nice polish, make it all look legit. But that is pretty well it. I noticed that I swear I looked at this and it had dowels in it. If you're sitting at home going, oh, that cover doesn't have dowels, I took them out when I machined the cases. So I got to find them and put them back in. But hopefully it won't change what we've done here at all. I'm sure it'll be fine because all the screws made up and that will be center. The screws aren't going to fight the dowels. So that's pretty well all sorted. So I just want to go through and polish his cover now. Alrighty, that'll do for this week's episode. As you can see, I have gone through and polished this rocket cover now. It is the absolute pits polishing. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Fuck, polishing sucks. If you do it for a job, I don't know how you do it. It is fucking terrible. Shit goes everywhere. But it does have a nice result. It fucking looks heaps better. Once we couple this with some nice painted jugs and all that, it's going to look fucking smick. So that's basically all I can do on this thing until I put the cam in. I ended up purchasing a J-Grind Andrews cam for this. So I still went with a Panhead cam. You'll see that there's like shovelhead cams and Panhead cams and Evo cams. there's a lot of different reasons for that. They got different duration. You know, a panhead's not as efficient as what a shovel head is, so they put less timing and stuff in the cams just to make it easier to start. You can go through and put like an A grind or something in this, but when it's hot, it's a bit of a dog to start because you've got a bit more duration, you've got a bit more air, a bit more stuff going on. Does make it harder to start. So I wanted sort of a mid-range cam, something that, you know, would work well, but still easy to start and easy to ride. I don't want it like to be absolutely mad when you're full throttle, but then a dog the rest of the time. I'd rather have a sort of a nice even mix between the two. So went with a J grind cam for this. I also bought a J grind for my panhead. So my panhead's got like 4 1/4 stroke and some other bits and pieces going on. This pan has big intake valves and stuff, so I still think that J grind is the way to go for this. So basically I want to put the cam in and get all the chest area buttoned up before I put my top end on. I want to be able to put this together and turn it over without pistons in it to make sure there's no, you know, drag or there's nothing tight in there. Everything in here has got to be nice and easy to turn over. So there's not much point putting the top end on because I won't be able to feel at my chest, won't be able to turn it over and feel any resistance in my chest. So I'm going to leave this thing alone for now and go on to something different until I get the cam in. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and if you guys have learned something, want to support the channel, please, I'll put a little banner here or something, go over and purchase a shirt. It really helps me do this stuff, helps me, you know, doing these videos takes fucking forever. There's so much time in filming it, there's so much time in editing it, and there's so much time in posting it. So if you appreciate the content, please go over and purchase a shirt. But anyway, thanks for that, and I will see you on next week's episode.